Hey everyone. Well, if you wanted or needed any more proof, any further proof, just who are the ones that are morally, logically, and philosophically inconsistent, complete hypocrites, liars, and their head is filled with nonstop contradictions. Well, all it took was, I mean, whether you like some of the things that Trump do or you just detest some of the things he does, and I'm on both sides of that fence. But the fucking hilarious part is, ever since he started running, it's like the constant non-stop replay of just how much hypocrisy is put forth and presented by those, not just establishment media and politicians, but I mean, look all over the world. And what this is in reference to is, and we're all aware today, and I mean, I feel bad about the people of Syria. It's bad. I got to start bringing this up again. After they started this bullshit back in 2012 or 2011 and 2012 during the Ron Paul run, I was the guy, just like a lot of us, were defending the Syrian people, right? And not trying to pick any rulers, but just standing up and speaking out for the Syrian people. I thought that was finally done. I thought we pushed back enough against the propagandists and the warmongers, the neocons, and like Obama and the people that were trying to push him into the full-on warmongering and bullshit. I thought we had got past that point because Trump was constantly talking about it. And I'm sure you've seen the memes, and I'll share them in this video, about how he was talking about how stupid it was to go bombing these countries in the Middle East and how it's going to create all these, But look what's happening now. Look at what's happening now. This is why, voting and picking masters or rulers, well, unless you're willing to accept and own up to everything your political master ruler does, then, it's a pretty fucking stupid idea to choose a ruler. Because that means everything that ruler does after you chose them, well, you were the one that chose to legitimize what they do, right? You're the one that's trying to put forth that they have legitimacy in their authority or their rights to carry out the orders, their edicts, or their demands on other people. So you got to be held to account for that. I'm very much glad and I'm very thankful that there are a lot of people that just, we've stepped out of the fray. We're like, nah, don't want nothing to do with that shit. I don't pick masters or rulers of any kind. I'll speak out objectively. I'll do all the things. Matter of fact, I'll be a leader. I'll do lots of things to help lead people to proper knowledge, proper education, proper philosophy, proper principles and logic. But don't need a ruler. Nobody needs a ruler. Leaders are good. Rulers are bad. In fact, I have to tell you that in 2017, in the age of information, instantly where you can find, that's disturbing on its own. But thank goodness, every once in a while, like I say, CBC Radio. None of the rest of the CBC, those fucks are just pounding away at the war drums. And you're seeing it, even Trudeau, that's another thing. Trudeau, Mr. Feminist, Mr. I'm all about feminism and SJW and all this stuff, right? And listen to the way he goes on. But at the same time, I support Donald Trump bombing Syria. I tell you, you leftists, you progressives, you collectivists, the ones, like I say, the ones that sacrifice the individual for the collective are the greater good. Hey, how's the greater good thing working out for you? See, when you choose to subject yourself to the opinions or edicts of a ruler, the greater good, as you call it, or that pretense, well, you better hope that the greater good's on the right path, right? Otherwise, that greater good. What if it's like a stampede of fucking, or a herd of fucking bulls or bisons heading off the cliff, right? Was that a greater good? Well, you better follow them off. Dumbasses. Anyways, this here is the Sunday edition. Like I say, it's CBC Radio. You do, and I've said this in past videos too, you do get at least some good dialogue if you just deal with the CBC Radio. Television, no. Television, like I say, especially when you see those idiots that get their expert panels up there, who are these experts? Who the fuck are they? They're the same people that you bring on week after week, day after day after day. And like, what? They're experts in everything? What are they, fucking human computers? And you listen to the words they say and the rhetoric they speak. It's like, no, they're not even logically consistent. So experts, no. Propagandists, narrative and opinion makers, yeah. But this gentleman here, and this in reference to, why do we think only wars make presidents? Syrian priest Nadeem Nasser responds to U.S. airstrikes. So this is the Sunday edition, and they were thoughtful enough in the Sunday edition to actually allow a voice that's a little bit outside the mainstream, right? Because if you listen to, like, look at who's supporting Trump in the bombing of Syria, right? After all the missiles that rained down on the airfield, which was complete, like I said, forget about it. I don't even get into the fucking technical details and how fucking ridiculous that was. But who's supporting Trump in that endeavor? Neocons, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, like all the neocons are, the leftists, all the progressives, and Nancy Pelosi, and all these fucking, the Democrats, the warmongers on that side of the fucking political aisle, the establishment media pundits and propagandists. I mean, you see some of these idiots. They're just, it's like they're salivating, they're almost drooling at the prospects of getting into another civil conflict where they can, get a little more attention drawn towards them. Your ego is that important to you? You fucking sociopathic motherfuckers. But look at the people who are standing in opposition to it. That's the part where I'm like so happy about, because, yeah, I don't identify myself with the alt-right. I'm not a fucking alt-righter. I'm a libertarian. I believe in live and let live, freedom, actual real freedom. I'm very extremist in that way. I believe in actual, real, genuine human freedom. Now these alt-righter fuckers that want to get into politics, they're even willing to stand up and say, and that's the thing, they were painted as the worst people on the planet, right? But they're the ones that are actually standing in opposition to Trump doing all this bombing. Now, of course, the media is trying to put it in as it's only because they're non-interventionists. Well, what does non-interventionist mean? Well, that means you don't want to fuck with people that haven't fucked with you or attacked you on your soil. That means I don't know, like I say, libertarians, non-aggression principle. You don't fuck with people that haven't fucked with you. So apparently alt-righters are even somewhat libertarian, it would seem. But yet they're painted as the most vile, despicable, whatever. But yet, like I say, just look at the optics of it. Look at the optics. Look at who's promoting war, conflicts where people die, where you have to stand, whether it's in close proximity or a mile away with a sniper rifle or whatever, or bombing with, or dropping missiles from planes. Look who's promoting that shit. And we all know there's unintended deaths in every conflict. But look who's promoting that. Yeah? All the lefties, like I say, the neocons. Look at Bill Mitchell. This fucking guy. That's another guy. This guy. Yeah, you jumped on the Trump train, Bill, but you know what? You might as well just let it run you the fuck over, because, who's going to want to listen to your shit now? You're not even staying remotely consistent in your principles. You're just, like I say, you seem like, and that old gray hair. I see a lot of that, and I won't throw all old men under the bus, but when I see old men that talk up warmongering and shit, are you lacking something? Are you compensating for something, right? Young men like myself, well, I'm not young, middle-aged men, I guess, like myself, everything still functions pretty good, so I don't have anything that I have to compensate for, right? Still got decent muscles, one that works perfectly fine, right? Well, the rest work too. But, yeah, is that something, like I say, that's one of those head-scratching moments. But anyways, yeah, you're quickly finding out, though, that, like, people I'm very proud of the fact that Stephen Molyneux, Paul Joseph Watson, Alex Jones, he's trying to play both sides of the fence, but, with him, like I say, you see me? Look at the people. Just, maybe I am a really, really, really good judge of character. Because I kind of like Alex a little bit in some of the shit he said, but even after all these years, I've still never subscribed to him. I have the Paul Joseph Watson. I have the Stephen Molyneux. I have to a lot of other people. I won't drop all the names, but you look out on there in the internet, right? In the sphere where everybody's being influenced, and look at the people who are against pro-war, and those who are pro-war, and those who are against. And I'm very, very happy to say that I'm on the side that are with the people that are staying logically and morally principled and consistent in their stance. Very thankful of this, because this is going to go a long way. This ain't going to go away. You can use your populism bullshit right now, Bill Mitchell, or all you fucking neocons, or all you other people that are standing by Trump while he's doing this shit. But it's the people that are willing to stand up in opposition, even though they were hoping to support Trump in opposition to Hillary or Bernie, like the socialists and all that. To me, it gives me great... I take great pride in the fact that I've chosen to surround myself with people who are very moral principled, and they'll do it even when they know it would be much more popular to appeal to the attack dogs, right? And they'd gain more positive influence in positions of power if they appease those types. But the morally principled people that I align with are sticking to the principle, and I'm so very thankful for that fact. Anyways, let's get to this this audio version and listen to what this man has to say. I'll have to pause it, and of course I'll post a link to this article and this audio in the description of my video below, so you can listen to it, because I may not go through the whole thing. It's a fairly long audio section, and because I'll be narrating, throughout the whole thing, I don't want to stretch my video. It's too long. But let's start into it and listen to what this gentleman, Nadeem Nasser, has to say in regards to the U.S. airstrikes in Syria.
Following U.S. President Donald Trump's bombing of a Syrian airbase early Friday morning, the reviews, as they say, are in. Syria, along with its allies, Russia and Iran, called it a violation of international law that would strengthen terrorists. Leaders in Saudi Arabia, Great Britain, France, Japan, and of course Canada, praised the airstrike as a proportionate response to Tuesday's poison gas attack that killed at least 70 people, including children. In the US, commentators from both left and right were ecstatic. Even the media, which have been relentless in their critique of Donald Trump, were complimentary. CNN's Fareed Zakaria gushed that after the bombing of the airfield, quote, Donald Trump became president. Of course, Trump has opposed such actions for years. He said what motivated him to change were the TV images of small children gasping for breath following the chemical attack. Some context here. This was not the first gas attack in Syria. Since the war began, about 55,000 Syrian children have been killed. Hundreds have drowned in the Mediterranean trying to escape the war. The UN estimates nearly 6 million Syrian children have needed humanitarian aid. Ironically, Syrian state media claims 4 children were among those killed by the U.S. attack. Yesterday, Syrian planes resumed flying from the airfield that had been hit by those cruise missiles, and the Syrian Air Force dropped more bombs, conventional ones this time, on the same town that had been hit by the gas attack. Father Nadeem Nasser has been trying to make sense of this week's events. He's the only Syrian priest in the Church of England, and he co-founded the Awareness Foundation, a charitable peace group that addresses religious violence. He was in Syria in December and plans to return later this month. Father Nadeem is in our CBC studio in London, England this morning. Good morning, Father.
Good morning to you, David.
When you heard about that chemical attack, what went through your mind?
Always it's heartbreaking for me observing my country being destroyed by war. I studied in Beirut in the 80s, and I lived through the civil war in Lebanon. I experienced the civil war firsthand. David, I was not supposed to live because I faced death in 7 years many times. When I graduated in 1989 in Lebanon, I didn't believe that God spared my life. And I felt after that every single day for me is a bonus, because God wants me to be a peacemaker. I experienced the ugliness and the horrible effects of war firsthand. I was sniped at. The school where I studied was shelled. My area was destroyed. We lost a theological student like me who was sniped in his head. I lost friends. I lost a lot in Lebanon. After 30 years, I'm going through the same thing in my country, Syria. It is devastating once more for me.
Here you are, you're listening to what President Trump said when he announced the attacks. What message was he sending? I guess, what was he sending to us, the public, and then what was the message he was sending to Bashar al-Assad and the Syrians?
Before that, you mentioned the journalist in the CNN who said after the attack, Trump became a president.
That's right.
I have a question to this journalist. If Trump met Putin and decided both of them to end the war in Syria, would he also have become a president? Or are we so used to the fact that only wars make presidents?
You know, because you use the word dialogue. When you talk a lot,
Yes.
it's dialogue. But is that possible in a case like this?
It's always possible, because dialogue is not there for friends. If I want to meet my friend, I don't call you, David, and I say, shall we go tonight for a dialogue? That would be funny. It would be awkward. I would say, let's go and have dinner and enjoy and have a conversation. But if I have a dispute with you, I would call you and say, let's talk about it. Let's have a dialogue. Dialogue is there for enemies, for those who have disputes. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political analyst. I'm a priest, and I'm a Syrian, and I'm passionate about my country. And I do feel that dialogue is the best tool that God has given us to resolve our disputes and
So just like Peterson says, Jordan Peterson, and this gentleman is in total agreement. This is what I mean when I talk about look at the kind of people who are morally and logically consistent. And those are the people that you should look up to and admire and respect. Because he's basically saying the same thing that Jordan Peterson's saying. If you take dialogue, conversation, right? The ability to use the power of persuasion and argument and debate off the table, there's only two alternatives left: conformity or war. And neither one is beneficial to any human being. One has a psychological effect that will play with you for all of eternity. The other one has a much more, well, actually they both can be pretty devastating, but initially much more devastating effect, which is war, where you send people to shoot and kill each other that they don't even know, for reasons they truly don't even understand. That's the part where you get to the point where you have brothers killing brothers, fathers killing fathers, sons killing sons. That's the time when you realize that dialogue should be always at the forefront and the most important thing that anyone can do when you're talking about any kind of conflict.
differences. What's wrong with that? Isn't it better than killing each other? I'm not here to defend Assad or defend the oppositions. There are both. They have blood on their hands. And my question is, why 70 people died through the gas, whoever bombed the gas or caused that? And it's absolutely terrible and horrific. What about the 700,000 people in Syria who died? Not less horrific death. Where was the world? Are they the children of a lesser God? Are they less human?
So what do you make of the global response to this week's events? Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, spoke in favour of the airstrike, as did other leaders, such as British Prime Minister Theresa May, all supporting the response of Donald Trump.
And tell me something. Do we have the proof? Who did it?
The proof of the gas attack.
Yes. I am not defending Assad or anybody. I am saying, do we have the proof? Second, 59 cruise missiles hit Syria, and now Donald Trump is a man, and he proved he is the president. What after that? Usually, as usual, we don't have a plan. The British and the Americans.
So like Nadeem was saying, do we have the proof? And the reason why he's bringing that up is for the very real fact that they tried this bullshit in 2013 while Obama was in power to put forth the pretense that Assad used chemical weapons on the people. And we've heard subsequently that actually there was more than 50 chemical attacks carried out by the people that were trying to fight the Syrian regime, Assad and his people and his military. There's no longer, actually at this stage, even in 2017, there is no conclusive proof that Assad ever carried out. And even after that fact, it was he who made the arrangement and the agreement with the United Nations and the whole thing of taking any potential chemical weapons out of that country and removing them completely so that he couldn't be blamed for anything, right? And he agreed to that. Assad agreed that to come and take so that he couldn't be held to account for anything. Because, like I said, he's one man. People can do a lot of things outside of the power and the privy of one man, especially in a war, in a conflict zone. So there was chemical weapons most likely used. But as we're seeing time and time again, it is very much, since no trial has been held, no one has been convicted by actual evidence in the rule of law, it is still completely open to interpretation and up in the air as to who actually carried out the bombings. And as we're seeing time and time again, K. Bono, who would benefit, it doesn't seem, and you're seeing this regurgitated and repeated by a lot of people too, is why would Assad choose to use chemical weapons against his own people or even his opponents when he was winning the war? Russia was on his side. Even the Americans were kind of helping to push out ISIS and these militant groups that are trying to overthrow Assad. He was winning the battle. And he had very high popularity in his own country. The people support him, and even the Christians within that country, because he protects them from the ISIS groups, even the Christians in that country were very much supportive and overwhelmingly in favor of Assad. So why would he or anyone in his regime choose to carry out this act when it would be completely contrary and destroy everything that they've worked for all these years to get to where they're at today? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. People have to think critically. And I know we can all be manipulated and tricked, so there's always a possibility that this is all... But just think critically. And if you don't know who is genuinely, if you personally don't know who is genuinely responsible, then leave that open to interpretation until there is conclusive proof. Do not allow these central planners, these control freaks, these warmongers, these neocons, these sociopathic leftists, these collectivists to use force, manipulation, coercion, and bombing the shit out of countries as a show of force just to put you in line with their mentality or their ideology. It's important for you to remain somewhat objective in these very important times.
Entered Iraq, invaded Iraq, removed Saddam without a plan. And the whole country descended into chaos, David. We are so reactionary in the West. So what happens now after the attack?
First of all, and when they say this, and I get it, it's because we were raised in a collective mentality. And I've even made that mistake a few times myself. But Nadeem Nasser, stop using we when you're talking in reference to people that chose to bomb that country. And I get it because we're taught to think collectively like we're all a family. And I totally get that. On one hand, it's a pretty good premise, right? Oh, it's all good to promote. But not when you're talking about these kind of topics or subjects. Hold the people to account. Don't make it a we thing. Because we didn't. I didn't. And I know Nasser or Nadeem didn't. But like I said, we're so inundated and indoctrinated in this mentality that it's hard for people to try to escape it. Even ones that are as critically thinking and clear thinking as Nadir is.
On the airbase, nothing.
Well, you're back and forth with friends, with people you know in Syria. What are they telling you?
They are fed up with those muscle stretching exercises.
Yeah.
They're all fed up in Syria
Yeah.
and in the Middle East with that. Look at Iraq. Iraq is on its knees. I go to Iraq
For what?
3 times a year or 4 times a year. It is heartbreaking. The people are devastated. They are destroyed. The whole country is destroyed. Everybody is now claiming to fight ISIS. Who is fighting ISIS? Who is giving the money and the arms to ISIS? Who dares asking this question to Mr. Trump or Mrs. May here in our beloved Britain? Who is opening the line for ISIS to get the money and the arms? And how on earth could ISIS export every single day oil worth $2 or $3 million? How on earth the Western countries are allowing allowing Turkey to open its borders for jihadis to pour in and for money and arms to ISIS. Can anybody volunteer an answer for a Syrian priest?
Well, what are the implications for Syria now with that one attack, 2 attacks? The Americans are still bombing. We know about that today.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. What are the Americans going to do? Keep bombing Syria? What do they want to achieve?
You know, the last time you were on this program, you were speaking to Michael Enright, and you talked about the conflict as a proxy war, you know, involving other people, other conflicts.
Yes.
You talked about dialogue earlier in this interview. It's something that...
So like he's suggested now, a proxy, and that's really what we're talking about now. This isn't just a civil strife or civil conflict in Syria. This is, and I hate to say it, and I hate to admit it, but yeah, there's some devious motherfuckers in Western countries that they will take full advantage of this. And you know, it's a lot of it that has to do, just go look, do some Google search, and you'll find this shit out. Pipelines running through that country, dominance of oil, whether they have central banks that are completely in line, right? Because when you're talking about central banks and the ability to print and fucking, you know, enslave people through debt and stuff, it's very important for the world dominated central banks to have everyone aligned, right? So that they can manipulate the people ad infinitum without anyone disrupting. But because there are countries on this planet, such as Syria, that won't go along to get along with this kind of bullshit, I've seen that, just like in Libya in the past, just like Iraq. I mean, and we all know now, look at Iraq. I mean, it's conclusively proven there, you won't even find one of these fucking asshole propagandist opportunists in the media that will defend what happened in the Iraq invasion. They've all had to own up and accept the fact that, yes, you were completely wrong, and while you were cheerleading for these wars, these foreign wars of aggression against people like Saddam, it sounded good in theory, it sounded good in principle, I guess, if you wanted to get rid of a dictator. But in reality, what you did is created more war, more civil strife, more violence, not just sectarian, but ideologically driven. Because in the Middle East, you're just like, you know, just like in North America and Western countries, you have conservatives and liberals. Well, in the Middle East, you have what's called Sunnis and Shias, right? So it's all ideologically driven civil wars and battles. And what the West is doing is taking advantage of the fact that there are civil strifes over there, and they're going to make sure that they can step in, divide, and conquer. That's the fucking part that we're all standing in opposition to. Well, the people like myself that are morally consistent, logically consistent, and ethical, and have some kind of a heart and care about other people, not just about whether it can benefit me financially, economically, or, you know, whether I can buy something cheaper at the fucking store, right? If you can invade these countries and take over their natural resources or their products or anything they have to offer. Thank goodness for people like this, Nadeem. Let's listen else what he's got to say.
You know, you say it's profoundly part of who we are as human beings if we want to solve problems.
That's true.
What are the chances of that dialogue happening? Of people from that Syrian government sitting down with, I don't know, a United Nations appointed panel? I don't know how that would work.
Who decides how the war in Syria goes are not the Syrians. They are the Americans, the Russians, the Turks, the Saudis, the Qataris, the Iranians, but not the Syrians. So when the Americans and the Russians want, and they have the will for such a dialogue to succeed, it will succeed. But no one comes to the dialogue, the Syrian dialogue in Geneva, who has the authority to decide. The decision is not in the hands of the Syrians. It is in the hands of the powers outside Syria. Tell me something. Why on earth do we allow a country like Saudi Arabia to decide the future of Syria? As if Saudi Arabia is the biggest democracy in the world? Nobody is criticizing Saudi Arabia for pouring billions of dollars supporting the war in Syria. Only because Saudi Arabia has the oil.
And that's really what it comes down to. Is geopolitical positioning, you know, picking winners and losers, and choosing who, you know, no matter how vile, no matter how despicable they are, who they'll benefit you in your personal or economic interest. That's what we're talking about when you're talking about central planners, rulers, fucking forced collectivism, wars, foreign conflicts. is never about you as the lowly person, the masses, right? The people that just want to go through life, keep food in your belly, a roof over your head, right? Take care of your children. None of this has to do with you. As a matter of fact, they're stealing and plundering large portions of not your productive capacity and your wealth, but future generations to pay for this kind of bullshit. You got to stand up. You got to stand firmly against this kind of bullshit, folks.
The Western values, my friend, we don't live in a civilized world. We live in a technologically advanced world, yes, but not civilized.
What that gentleman just said, and I might end up making that a meme someday. Matter of fact, I might do it as soon as I'm done this video. We don't live in a civilized world. We live in a technologically advanced. So when you look out, just like myself, when I look out, or look even around in my place, I got all kinds of things to distract me with, all kinds of things that make me feel we've advanced and progressed in so many ways. But in reality, and we have. But those ways have nothing to do with the matters that should matter most to us. The things that should matter most to us are how we guide ourselves morally and philosophically. Happiness, peace, and prosperity should matter way more than things or consumable goods. But this is where we are at today. This is where we have come. This is the fruition of this constant fucking promotion of the race to the bottom. We're not there yet. And I'm trying to, like I said, I have fairly broad shoulders and I'm a pretty strong guy, and I'm trying my best to hold the weight, right? But just like Atlas, we might have to shrug someday, because the weight, the burden is becoming so heavy that I may end up flinching. We may end up flinching at some time. And if we do, you people should be happy and thankful there are people every day standing up in opposition. Otherwise, we'd already be in probably World War III by now. The only thing that has prevented it so far is people like myself. But you know what? The more we're opposed, the more we realize that nobody wants to learn anything, well, people will learn, and we all recognize and realize that, well, let things get bad enough. You'll learn the hard way. You don't want to learn the easy way, the good way, the moral way, the logically consistent way. Okay, at some stage of the game, even people like myself, even the most morally compassionate people on the fucking planet will say, listen, you don't want to listen now? All right, well, I guess you'll have to learn the hard way. I even had to do that with my own children a couple times, not very often, because luckily I was out in front trying to be a good leader, a good example. But I have had to even do that with my own kids. Well, I guess you will have to learn the hard way. Is that where you're trying to force people today? So that we have to go through more war? Like, there will be a lot of opportunists, collectivists, parasites, sociopaths, and control freaks will benefit this. But for the overwhelming majority of the 7 billion people on this planet, we will all lose out on so many things. And we'll backtrack, and we'll have to try to make up and gain all that loss, and then try to push humanity forward if we allow these fuckers to dominate the narrative and control everything. Push back. Fuck's sakes. Grow some backbone, have some courage and conviction, and push back against this stuff. Be like Nadeem, right? He's not fucking catering to ISIS, and I'm sure they're probably calling him out as, oh, look at this fucking piece of shit or whatever. Fuck populism. Make morality and the proper stance for human endeavors and human intellect and the human peace and prosperity. Hold that as your most fundamental fucking aspects. Every principle should rely solely on voluntary means and voluntary interactions in the human experience. These people that want to create war and conflict are not your friends. And even if you might benefit in some way from these foreign conflicts, well, then you should at least be willing to stand up and say, you don't want your little fucking benefits. I don't give a fuck if you can give me $1,000 a week that you can steal from someone in Syria, or I can benefit from death and destruction in a foreign country. Reject it. Tell them, I don't want your fucking shit. Have some courage and some resolve, for Christ's sakes.
To be civilized means to have ethics, means dialogue, means trying to solve our problems with the mind and the heart, not with the muscles, like Mr. Trump is trying to do. Or Putin, both. I'm not saying Russia is better. We can't afford looking at America and seeing a president who is reactionary, who is moved by the moment. It doesn't work like this. He should be a holistic man who looks at the conflict from beginning.
You know, Trump's little fucking adventure into this shit is actually starting to make me think that maybe some of these idiots were right about him in some way, in some small aspect. I won't give them carte blanche to think that they, because I know what they are. They're just a bunch of opportunists and fucking propagandists and fucking bullshitters. But yeah, what's up, Trump, man? If you're supposed to be the strong man, a real strong man don't give in, fucking bow to fucking pressures just because, oh, I better go along to get along, right? If you're claiming to be the strong man and stand in that position to the neocons or the establishment, all the shit you talked about when you were running to be president of the United States, well, fucking stand firm in that shit. And I don't want to hear your bullshit. Oh, you got new information. No, war is fucking wrong. There's no information you could come up with that would ever convince anyone that's morally consistent that you should be in a country of the United States. I wish I had a map on here right now so I could show you where the U.S. is, way the fuck over there, and where Syria is, way the fuck in the Middle East, where that you can fucking find some way where you should be fucking with people way the fuck over there. There's no reason. There's no national interest. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. What, to steal their oil? What, that's your national interest? That's another thing. Ask Trump to say, well, what's your fucking national interest? You're saying national interest. That's why you're doing it. What the fuck? Or to protect American national. What American national interest are you protecting, Trump? Huh? Corporate cronies? I'm very proud, like I say, just like myself. I don't give a fuck. I was kind of happy to see Trump a little bit rise to the top just as a poke in the eye to these fucking piece of shit motherfuckers that thought Hillary was going to get in there. That warmongering bitch. And she was the one that was actually pounding war drums even before Trump. What did you give in because you were like, oh, that bitch not going to fucking be all... What? Is that Trump? Man, maybe you do. Maybe them small hand things, maybe that is truthful, right? Are you compensating? I don't know, Trump, man. A tall guy with short hand or small hands, you know, maybe the fuck you are compensating. Well, listen. Fuck with all the money you got. Get a fucking implant. Do something about that. Fix your shit up. Pay a really high paid sociologist or psychiatrist to fix that shit up so you're not goddamn well playing these fucking stupid games. Because I think it's pathetic. No one fucking, like I said, you're not even the alt-right, the people that are claiming to racist and misogynists, even they don't fucking respect and appreciate your shit. What does that tell you?
To now and make a decision. He's making decisions which affects thousands and millions of lives. Half of the country of Syria, more than 11 million people on the move.
Father, there was a letter published this week by Syrian intellectuals, writers and journalists. It's a powerful condemnation of both the United States and Russian actions, as you talk about. Here's a quote from that letter. It goes,
Go ahead.
The world today is a Syrian problem, just like Syria today is a world problem. For the sake of the world, we call for the condemnation of the American and Russian politicians responsible for this disaster and their exposure as nihilistic murderers and terrorists, similar to the arch rivals in the Islamic nihilistic camp.
There is a lot of truth in it because politicians have failed drastically. The world has let Syria down in a big way. Today, we are remembering one of the most brutal battles in the First World War. Today, we should remember also what is happening in Syria is the most brutal civil war, proxy war that happened in history. It is shame to the world and to the politicians, all of them. Shame on you, politicians, to allow such atrocities to take place in the 21st century.
Father, it's Palm Sunday.
Yes, it is.
Important day in the Christian
And
calendar.
you see, you know, that also reflects what the meaning of Palm Sunday. When Jesus Christ entered Jerusalem on an ass, on a donkey, the Jewish leaders were expecting a military savior, a military king, who would come to Jerusalem and kick the Romans out of Jerusalem. But Jesus was genius. He came on a donkey to say, my kingdom is not here. My kingdom is the kingdom of love, the kingdom of people talking, people loving, people living together. Palm Sunday is exactly what should remind us how we should behave in Syria, in Iraq. David, we are in the 21st century, and the world has 60 million refugees in it. 21st century. We have 20 million people facing death through famine. Isn't that a shame? And we call ourselves civilized?
Father, you're returning to Syria later this month.
Yes.
What are you going to say? How are you going to comfort all of those people who are going to be looking at you for wisdom?
That's another thing what this gentleman is saying, which I greatly respect and admire. And that's another thing that I want to hold a lot of the fucking people in the business community to task right here and now. We've heard the reports from years past that there's anywhere from 20 plus to $33 trillion stashed in offshore accounts. People around this fucking planet, and a very, very, very small percentage of them, which, you know, if you gained your wealth legitimately, you deserve it. But we know nobody to get to that level. No, you fucked over a lot of people to get that level. In this modern world, there's no such thing as a free marketer that just became so popular and so rich from free market fundamentals. There's nobody that exists in this world today under that pretense that I know of. These people are making their bulk of their wealth through central planning, forced collectivism, subjugation, a new and reinvented modern slavery under another term and another name. But these people have that much money, and all this war, all this civil conflict and division, all the death, devastation, pain, and destruction, it could be easily removed, at least the bulk of it, by just giving people enough income, right? Appreciate what they have to do enough that they can provide and benefit themselves. That would eliminate, I would say, the overwhelming majority of civil strife and conflict, or even foreign strife and conflict on this world, on this planet. If people could just maintain enough income to sustain their living without having to use force, mysticism, theft, or coercion towards their fellow man, or woman, or child. So, if you really care about freedom, liberty, and you have shitloads of money, do your best to help spread that wealth. You know, government shouldn't be able to feel or force or steal from you or distribute your wealth by taking from you illegally or immorally or unjustly. You should be able to look it upon yourself and say, I can't spend all this money in 10 of my lifetimes. So to help my fellow man, to help humanity out and try to reduce the amount of civil strife and conflict, I'm going to help them by giving the people that don't have any way to benefit themselves and they're willing to work, be willing to spread that wealth. Like I say, and it's not about fucking socialism. Voluntary means, everything I talk about is about voluntary means. Not by central planning, not by government, not by statism, by just helping people out with market fundamentals as your base premise for doing anything. And market doesn't just necessarily mean prosperity as far as income. Prosperity, mental health, that all helps or comes from and is a result of not just economic prosperity, but intellectual prosperity, intellectual knowledge, intellectually astute knowledge that gives people a higher understanding of what it is to live on this planet, what the meaning of life is, right? And religion has done that for a lot of people, but like I said, it has allowed that dogmatist, that dogma mentality to flourish, so I realize that doesn't always play out in the way it should be. Statism is fucking 10 times worse than all your establishment religions for the most part, because just like ISIS, they're fighting for statism. They talk about Allah, but they're talking about fighting for shit on the ground. Allah never told them to do this shit. None of them will ever be able to say, oh, listen to the recording of Allah telling me this. No. It's bullshit they're hearing in this fucking world, in this planet, in this fucking plane that we live in. You can think your overlords, your deities are telling you to do this stuff, but they're not. And human beings wrote the Bible. Human beings wrote the Quran. All right? I understand that these people were opportunists in their own right. They had their own devious reasons why they wanted to write the text in the manner they did. It's up to you, it's up to all of us in 2017 to stand firm in opposition to this dogmatic belief where we just are allowing people to kill each other on a rampant and everyday basis for the pretense of doing it under some ideologically driven narrative. That's fucking bullshit. If your God is holy, if your God is great, if your God is wonderful, your God would never ask you to kill people you've never met, that have never done anything to you or never caused harm to any other man, human, or woman or child. Just because they wear a different, bandana, right? Like if you were gay, or a different flag or crest, or come from a different tribe. This forced subjugation and collectivism is what's destroyed the mentality of so many people. Religion, some of the old world aspects of old world religion did play into it, but that's not what seems to be the dominating the narrative today. The old world religions aren't what dominating the narrative. Allah, Islam, that's actually not what's dominating the narrative. It's governments. It's the Islamic State or Republican governments or democratic governments. Those are the institutions. Those are the people that represent those or institutions are the ones that you really need to be worried about. It's not some mystical deity that lives in some far off space in the nether world, right? That's not who we really have to be fearful of at this stage of the game. It's the people that live here and now on this earth, on this planet, that are indoctrinating the minds of so many people to carry out these orders, these edicts, to use violence and force and mysticism as a means to an end. These are the people we got to stand in opposition to. Now, actually, no, I'm going to finish playing this video. Let's listen to what these got to say. There's only another 3 minutes left, and you know what? This is probably going to be an hour-long video, but I'm going to keep going because this is an important video, and I want you to hear it.
I'm going to meet young people, and we have in the Awareness Foundation program called Ambassadors for Peace. We train young people to turn away from their anger, their devastation, and become a force for peace in their communities. When you see in front of your eyes young hearts and young souls turning slowly from being angry, devastated, disappointed from the whole thing with all the world, even with God, into believing in themselves that they can make a difference, we still can do a lot if we have the will to stop the bloodshed, to stop this madness, what I call it theatrical madness, and go and sit down and find a way to end this bloodshed. In Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, in Yemen, this is senseless, and it's a stain of shame on the forehead of every politician in the world.
Father, I hear your anger, but I also hear your optimism. When you talk about the young people, it's what keeps you going, isn't it?
That's what keeps me going.
Father, thank you so much. Be safe. Be safe when you go to back to your homeland.
Thank you very much for having me, and I hope the message of peace reaches the decision makers so that they can stop this bloodshed and find a way to make business a profitable way for the economy rather than war.
Thank you for that wisdom, Father.
Exactly. Make businesses profitable for the people, not war. So like I say, when you're seeing this kind of bullshit, and we've seen this so many times in the past, when things are going awry for the central planners, the control freaks, the sociopaths among us, they realize how you distract and divide the people and at the same time create a lot of economic activity. It's a multi-pronged approach, and it does lead to the kind of things that they want to happen, right? If you create war, yes, of course people will stop fighting amongst each other because they recognize they have a foreign enemy. But you haven't done anything to resolve the problems that are already established in any civil conflicts, you've only distracted them for a short time frame. And you might have generated some wealth, but that wealth, as you're seeing in any war, look at the consequence and the results of any major war or conflict, and look at the people that actually genuinely benefited, and look at the people who lost tremendously. The countless millions, the families, the children, the wives, the husbands, the parents, the grandparents. The people that went out on these kind of conflicts and they benefit, and they could show there's some economic growth maybe 100 years down the road. Yeah, that might look good on a chart. But that leaves out what the underlying fundamentals and the aspects of how that played out and how devastating it was in the entire population that had to live under those kind of circumstances. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.